Hi there, this is Gayatri Jayaraman. Welcome to Shamaha. It's really nice to see all of you who are logging back in every day. I get some lovely feedback. Thank you so much. Do also leave comments, questions, suggestions in the boxes below. Those of you who are new, welcome. Please do like, share, subscribe, and generally pass on the word if you find that this benefits you. Always trying to reach out with this information to whoever may need it, and hopefully it will be beneficial to a lot more people. Today, I wanted to talk to you about aspects of the mind that we are constantly struggling with and how to befriend them, right? So, most of us, as we go through our day, we treat the mind as though it's some sort of a battle, right? When we want to study, when we want to write something, when we're trying to cook, there are so many points during the day when we're like, oh no, do I need to get up and do this? I just don't feel like it. My mind is elsewhere. I'm not in the mood. And we're constantly in this sort of an uphill battle against it. We're kind of like trying to make it do the things that we need it to do. And it's kind of like mind is enemy number one. So I thought that let's deal with four aspects of the mind that we can sort of befriend in order to make it easier for us to get our work done and also to sort of listen to the mind and see what it's saying. So, rule number one, of course, is befriend the mind. Don't treat it like an enemy. How do you befriend the mind? There are four aspects. The first, of course, is anxiety. Every time we have something new to do, okay, we come up against this sort of wall called anxiety. I've got to go to a party and meet new friends and people I don't know or network for a work issue. And all I'm thinking is, oh my God, how do I get through this? It's so difficult. What do I wear? What do I say? I'm not good at small talk. And this is just a social situation, but we all come up with anxiety in a number of situations in our lives. And what is the way in which to treat anxiety so that we are able to befriend it? One thing I really like telling people is that anxiety is kind of like getting onto an elevator which is overloaded and you hear the beeping sound. All of us have confronted this at some point in our lives. Would we just continue to get onto that elevator? No. We step back and we say, hang on, why is this beeping? Why is it overloaded? Something must be wrong. Let me check. It's kind of like that blinking light in your car which says, you need to check the engine. You need to check the fuel. So, anxiety is that blinking light or that beeping sound in all our lives. And most of us, sadly, in this sort of 9 to 5 or 9 to 10, however long hours that people are working right now during the pandemic, are just trying to push aside that beeping sound and push through. So then we start treating anxiety like the enemy. So what we're saying is, don't annoy me, don't get in my way, you're just really obstructing me. But when it comes to a car and an elevator, we're like, hang on, this is protecting me. So just change your perspective towards anxiety from that which is annoying you and obstructing you to that which is warning you and protecting you. So then when you look at it, come up and you say, what is this anxiety trying to tell me about myself, about my life, about my circumstance, about my situation? What do I need to change so this anxiety will go away? That is one way to deal with basic levels of anxiety. The second one you can sort of modify is the sense of aversion or disgust. Okay, when we deal with aversion, I don't want to eat certain kinds of foods. I don't want, it's just really makes me feel sick. I know it's good for me. I don't like exercise. I have an aversion to exercise. I have an aversion to eating healthy. When we see the word aversion coming up, it's trying to say something. Now, a lot of times, aversion is something that can lead us down the road into depression. We look at aversion and we sort of say, we begin to, aversion is a process by which we begin to isolate ourselves, to cut ourselves off from the things that we don't like. The more aversion increases, the more and more we isolate ourselves. So, and aversion, when it is turned inwards, also begins to create a sense of self loathing. So, we say, I am no good for this. I cannot go to that event because, I just can't do it. There's no point how much ever effort I put in at the gym, I don't seem to lose weight. So we start using aversion as an inward mechanism for self-loathing, self-criticism, and we put ourselves down. The correct way to use aversion is to turn it outward. So be a bit of a snob in your life and use aversion to remove the things that obstruct you in the goals that you want to meet. So, for instance, if weight loss is your goal, instead of using aversion towards gymming or the diet or the things that you know that you want to do, try and turn it outwards and point it towards the things that are keeping you from meeting your goal. So, say, have an aversion to that 3 o'clock craving, right? And say, what can I do to obstruct that aversion? I rather than turn it inwards and say, I am not somebody who can stick to this diet, turn it like a spotlight onto the things that you want to avert. That is the correct use of aversion. Remember that aversion turned inwards leads to self loathing, self criticism, and can take you down the road to depression. Turn it outwards to use it to declutter and filter out what you don't want obstructing your path from your life. The third aspect is anger. Anger, similarly, is something that we all wish we didn't have. We didn't feel it, we didn't show it, we didn't express it, because there is very rarely a time when we show anger and we don't regret it later. And it brings to mind something that my dad had told me when I had just first become a parent. And he said, when you treat a child, you should always show anger but not feel it. And I think that is a principle that I have tried to use all my life, where anger is not something that you feel. If you feel it, then the anger controls you. If you show it, then you control the anger. So that is the way to shift your perspective on anger, is that even if you're feeling angry at something, wait till the feeling passes, grab anger by the neck and show it in the way that it needs to be shown. Because when you do that, you will be giving it as a response and not a reaction. When you give it as a response, you are exhibiting it according to the purpose that needs to be served. So, for instance, there are times when we do need to show anger, when people are being oppressed, when governments don't, are not being fair, when we see injustice done to others or even to ourselves. You do need to display anger, but always remember the distinction between showing anger and feeling anger. And the fourth aspect, which is very closely linked with anger, is fear. Almost all of anger has a basis in fear, especially the anger that grips us and that we feel very intensely. And a good way to handle fear is to go into the anger. And it's a good way to handle anger also, is to go into the anger and say, what does this anger show? What is it telling me about myself? What is it I am afraid of? What is the fear that I have that will take place? It could be a fear for the future, it could be a fear for reduced opportunity, reduced resources, fear that we are being left out. We have a lot of fears depending on our position, depending on the things that we're grappling with. And not all these fears are unjustified. They could be, very valid fears. There are fears of losing our jobs, losing our income, fears of not being able to cope, fears of, possibly not having the mental strength to deal with certain things. But then that fear is also telling you something, right? So the proper way to deal with that fear is to talk to it and say, what is it you're telling me about myself? Why do I have this fear? What is it indicating? And sometimes you'll see that the fear, for instance, is something that can be resolved in a completely different way. Like, for instance, let's just say that you're a teacher and you're really angry that you didn't get a promotion that you thought you'd get this year. And you sit and question that, and you say that, why do I have this anger? I'm just not able to let go of it. Then you realize that the anger is linked somewhere to a fear of lacking stability, it fear of a lack of response to your performance, lack of an increased pay. That increased pay probably would contribute in some way to your household, your groceries, your EMIs, and you have a fear of losing that stability. So now that you know what those fears are indicative of and where that anger comes from, there are several ways you can go about to address them that don't involve getting in necessarily getting only what you're getting. One is, you could go to your principal and your supervisor and you say, I'm a little worried that this means that my performance wasn't very good and that I'm being sidelined. Sometimes helps to have a conversation. For all you know, the principal and the supervisor might say, look, it's really not that. We wanted to give it to you, but she had mitigating factors, the school didn't have the budget, whatever, hear them out. It may feel like an excuse to you, but it may be very valid for them. And it also goes to show that it's not about you, it's not about your performance. Often, a lot of the things that we get angry about are not about us. In fact, if we just um, look past the anger and sort of dig a little and scratch at the surface, and we'll find that the deeper reasons often have very little to do with us. It's often about the other person. And then what about the other aspects? Yes, I do need the money, I do need the stability, I do need the security. Is there something else I can do to give myself that, since I'm not getting it from here? Maybe I can start taking tuitions. Maybe I can apply to one of those classes and where they pay teachers a lot of money. Maybe I can go back to my school and see, is there something else I can do? I'm willing to take on remedial classes, or just be at the library for 2 hours if you can pay me a little extra. There are a lot of ways in which we can supplement the things that we need, which that are not entirely based on it being only one path. And then we'll find that when we open up all these separate paths, diverse paths to us, our frustration goes down at being blocked on this one single path. And when we are no longer blocked on this one single path, our anger and our fear immediately reduces. So these are the ways to befriend these aspects of the mind. They are anxiety, disgust, anger, and fear. And once we are able to befriend them, we'll find that the struggle, this constant coming up against the wall of the mind that we seem to engage in on a daily basis, will really just dissolve into nothingness. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Do try these out in your daily life and let me know how they seem to be working for you. See you soon.